Caitlin Clark was placed at number 10 by ESPN in their WNBA rankings on Thursday, below Paige Bueckers, and Indiana Fever fans were furious. By the same night, Clark was back on her home court for the first time since July of 2025, and she went out and scored 21 points in 16 minutes on 66% shooting against a full-strength Dallas Wings squad. But the box score isn't even the most interesting part of the night. What she said after the game, specifically about the corrupt WNBA referees after a flagrant foul from Alanna Smith, is something that changes how you need to watch her play in 2026. Do you think the WNBA referees will be fair to Caitlin this year? Let me know down in the comments below.
Thank you for Clark. She will launch, draws the foul, and will shoot 3 free throws.
Foul on number 8, Alanna Smith. First, second, team's first.
Clark a little slow to get up here.
When they called Clark's name during player introductions at Gainbridge Fieldhouse, the crowd noise was so loud it distorted phone camera audio. Not polite applause, not a warm welcome back, but the kind of unhinged roar you get when a fan base has been sitting on something for 10 months and finally gets to let it out all at once. And 10 months is not an exaggeration. Clark's body basically fell apart on her through 2025. Quad issues bleeding into thigh problems, then a groin injury, then an ankle issue layering on top of all of it. So she only got through 13 games the entire season before Indiana shut her down. She hadn't played a full home game at Gainbridge since July 2025, so walking back out onto that floor Friday night carried a weight that doesn't show up in any stat line. Clark put it plainly post-game. Anytime you get to put on your uniform and lace up your shoes, you don't take that for granted, especially having come off of last year. That's not a canned media answer. That's someone who spent most of a year watching her team struggle without her while her own body kept finding new ways to break down.
You were down, you were rubbing your knee, and then you were living a little bit. Is it your knee, your ankle? What exactly was bothering you?
I just landed on my kneecap really hard.
The injury stretch also created this weird space in the media conversation where people started treating Clark like she was almost an afterthought at the top of the league's pecking order. And then ESPN dropped their WNBA top 50 rankings the day before this game and basically made that feeling official. Clark landed at number 10. Paige Bueckers came in at 8. Sabrina Ionescu at 6. This is the same Clark who finished 4th in MVP voting as a rookie, who set a single-season assists record, who posted the second most three-pointers in a season in league history, broke 62 records during her rookie year, and ESPN slotted her behind players who had worse years than she did, even while she was injured last year. Fans weren't just annoyed. They were pointing at a specific number and using it as evidence that the whole ranking exercise was agenda-driven noise designed to generate clicks before the season started. So the crowd walking into Gainbridge already had some extra fuel. And then they found out that Aaliyah Boston and Lexi Hull were both sitting out, held for precautionary reasons according to coach Stephanie White, who confirmed post-game that neither absence involved any structural damage. Dallas came in at full strength. Indiana was already 2 starters short before tip-off, which means any straight reading of the final score without that context tells you almost nothing useful about where this team actually is.
Our starting lineup is, obviously we have Mai and Mo in there that weren't a part of the Fever last year, and then you have me, which I missed basically all of our games, and then Sophie missed a good amount of our games too. So in a way, we're trying to build this connectedness and this chemistry, and while we don't have AB and Lex the last 2 games, I still think we can find a way to be a little bit better. And
the crowd didn't really care about any of that though. They came to see number 22 back on the floor, and Clark delivered 21 points in 16 minutes on 66% shooting, which gave them exactly what they came for and then some. But there's a piece of her night that the box score doesn't fully explain, and it's the piece that actually tells you something new about how her game has shifted since 2024. She attempted 13 free throws in 16 minutes of play, converted 11 of them, and then came out of the locker room after the game and praised the referees for making the right calls. For anyone who watched Clark get fouled without a whistle for 2 straight seasons, that post-game comment needed some explanation. Let's talk about what actually happened when Clark and Bueckers shared the court, because ESPN ranked Bueckers at 8 and Clark at 10, and then the two of them played against each other the very next night, and it didn't go the way that ranking suggested it would. Clark's 21 points came from 3 different ways of scoring, and 2 of those 3 plays happened directly against Bueckers as the defender.
Last year, as Clark gets by Bueckers and gets to the rim.
Downhill.
The first one was a blow-by layup where Clark caught the ball on the perimeter, gave Bueckers one hard dribble, and was already past her before Bueckers could get her feet reset. No hesitation, no second read. Just a guard who's been running that exact move since her Iowa days and still hasn't found a defender who can cut it off cleanly when she commits to going. Bueckers is a good defender. Clark just didn't give her enough time to do anything about it.
And again, a lot of shoes were filled last year.
Catch it, shoot, and Clark delivers with a 3.
Bing, bang, bong for Caitlin Clark. Taking a look. Good coming shoulder to shoulder. Just, Odyssey Sims just.
The second play was a wide-open 3, and this one was as much about Monique Billings as it was about Clark. Billings set a hard screen that completely freed Clark up on the perimeter, and once Clark had daylight, she buried it, going 2 of 3 from 3 on the night. That play doesn't work without Billings doing the dirty work on the screen, so credit goes where it's due, but Clark still had to catch it clean, set her feet, and knock it down with defensive attention coming from somewhere else on the floor.
Alanna Smith struggled to pull it down, and it's Clark who sets sail for the other end.
Then came the steal. Clark read Bueckers' passing lane, stepped into it, picked the ball off, and went coast to coast for the layup before Dallas could rotate back. So in one sequence, she took the ball directly away from the player, ESPN ranked above her, and scored on the other end, while the wings were still turning around. That's not a lucky deflection. That's Clark studying Bueckers' tendencies and making a calculated gamble that paid off in the most direct way possible. Now, Bueckers didn't have a bad night, and it's worth being straight about that. She finished with 20 points in 20 minutes, and she shot the ball really well from 3, going 4 of 6 from beyond the arc in the first half alone, which is a big jump from her rookie season where she averaged only 3.3 three-point attempts per game. That expanded range is a real development in her game, and Dallas is going to be dangerous because of it. Azzi Fudd, on the other hand, went for 4 points in her Wings debut. The Dallas backcourt was supposed to be one of their strengths coming into this season, with Fudd and Bueckers running together in the same lineup, so that pairing still has some proving to do before anyone calls it a solved equation. Back to the head-to-head, though. Clark scored 21 in 16 minutes. Bueckers scored 20 in 20 minutes. Those 4 extra minutes Bueckers needed to match Clark's output don't lie, and no amount of reframing the night changes that math. Clark was more efficient, she was more aggressive, and she did it in less time against a defender who had every reason to be fired up playing in front of a road crowd that wanted her to outplay the home team's star. Clark shot 66% from the field and still got to the free throw line 13 times in those same 16 minutes, which means Dallas couldn't stop her from the field and couldn't stay out of foul trouble either. And that combination happening at the same time is what made her night so hard to defend against. After the game, Clark walked out and praised the referees. Not a polite non-answer, not the usual no-comment energy you get from players who are trying to stay professional, but genuine praise. She told reporters, "I thought the refs did a really good job tonight. I know there's a committee of people that really wanted them to start calling things, and I thought they did a great job of that." For anyone who spent 2024 and 2025 watching Clark get grabbed, held, and bumped on shooting attempts without a single whistle, that post-game comment probably needed a second read.
That foul that took you out.
I feel good. Obviously, I thought the refs did a really good job tonight on it, actually, and That's kind of been their focus going into this season is, you know, I know there was a committee of people that really wanted them to start calling things, and I thought they did a great job of that, honestly. I thought the refs were great.
So what actually changed? The WNBA went into 2026 with a specific officiating emphasis around shooting fouls and landing space, and it wasn't just a memo that referees would ignore by opening night. Alanna Smith drew a flagrant 1 call in this game for a closeout that cut into Clark's landing zone on a 3-point attempt, and the refs reviewed it and upgraded the call. That's the new standard applied in real time in a preseason game against a player making a hard closeout that defenders have been getting away with for years. The league isn't just talking about protecting shooters, they're actually calling it.
Back here for Clark. She will launch, draws the foul, and will shoot 3 free throws.
Foul on number 8, Alanna Smith. First, second. Team's first.
Clark a little slow to get up here.
Clark attempted 13 free throws in 16 minutes, and that number doesn't happen by accident. What changed is that Clark now understands the rules work in her favor, so when she attacks the basket or rises into her shooting motion, and a defender doesn't give her space, she's getting the whistle instead of absorbing the contact and moving on. Dallas is a good defensive team. They still sent her to the line 13 times in less than a half of basketball because they couldn't guard her without fouling her. And every time they tried to get physical, the refs caught it.
Yeah, it's a preseason game, so you're probably going to see more fouls called. I would expect the number to drop. I don't know how many fouls in total were called tonight, and at times it can make the game choppy, but I think overall it's going to improve the product. The players aren't getting held, and it was both ways. I thought they did a good job both ways. So, but overall, I feel fine.
Clark's own words pointed at something real here. She noted that players aren't getting held, and specifically said she expects the foul numbers to drop once the regular season starts and defenders adjust. But she still called the overall direction a positive one. That's not a player venting frustration. That's a player who's already mapped out how the new rules fit her game and is telling you, pretty openly, that she plans to use them. In previous seasons, Clark absorbed a lot of contact that never got called, so she leaned heavily on her pull-up game and 3-point volume to score because those were the shots she controlled entirely. She didn't need a favorable whistle to hit a 30-footer. Now she's added a third option, free throws off aggressive attacks. That doesn't require a made shot from the field at all. Defenders have to pick their poison. Give her space and she'll pull up. Crowd her and she'll draw the foul. Both outcomes put points on the board for Indiana. 11 free throws converted in 16 minutes, combined with 66% shooting from the field, meant Dallas couldn't slow her down by 2 completely separate methods at the same time. One of those things being true on a given night is a tough defensive problem. Both of them being true simultaneously in the same 16-minute stretch is basically unsolvable unless you're just willing to let her operate completely uncontested, and no defense in the WNBA is built to do that against Clark. She scored 21 points on 6 field goals and 11 free throws, which is a genuinely unusual scoring distribution. And the refs calling the Alanna Smith flagrant is exactly the kind of call that would have been swallowed in 2024. The rules didn't just change on paper. Friday night showed they changed on the floor too. Indiana lost, and the scoreboard is worth looking at honestly, not to panic about it, but because the way they lost points directly at things that need to get fixed before May 9th, and some of those things are fixable and some of them are harder problems that don't disappear just because the regular season starts.
That second quarter, you guys bled a ton of points. What did you see as the issues you guys had?
Yeah, I think just, a little undisciplined, just soft defensively. We have to be more connected as a group. I didn't feel like we were very connected as 5 working together, and you're going to need to help your teammates. Defense is hard, especially when they get us in rotations, but also our offense wasn't very good, and that's hard when you miss shots and turn the ball over to try to get your defense set and try to get to your matchups. So it's a little of both, but overall, we just had to play better defense.
Dallas out-rebounded Indiana 45-26. That's a 19 rebound gap, and it didn't come from one bad stretch. It ran through the whole game, and the Wings kept getting second and third chance opportunities that Indiana's defense couldn't recover from. Stephanie White didn't sugarcoat it post-game either. She told reporters the Fever got out toughed, which is a pretty direct way of saying the interior battle wasn't close. Boston is Indiana's most reliable presence on the glass. Hull gives them another body who can fight for boards on the wing, and neither of them played a single minute Friday night. So the Fever were undersized from the opening tip, and Dallas figured that out fast. The turnovers made everything worse. 17 of them against a full-strength Dallas squad, and the Wings converted that sloppiness into 42 free throw attempts. So Indiana wasn't just losing the rebounding battle, they were also handing Dallas extra possessions that turned into free points at the line. White pointed at a specific problem with how her team approached the offense, saying we felt like we tried to throw it into a crowd, and that players were dribble happy and going for the home run play instead of the easy pass. That's a fixable habit, but it cost Indiana badly in this game.
Raven Johnson shined in her preseason debut. Here's Mitchell with the floater.
Now, the Fever weren't just getting dragged along out there. Kelsey Mitchell scored 10 points, Michaela Timpson put up 11, and Myisha Hines-Allen finished with 7 points and 7 rebounds. So Indiana got real production from multiple players even while playing shorthanded. None of that was enough to overcome 17 turnovers and a rebounding deficit that big, but it does tell you the supporting cast can contribute when things are running right.
And Kamenciado drives on Timpson, who got the block. Connell's hit the deck a couple times.
Raven Johnson was the genuine standout of the whole night alongside Clark. 5 steals and 5 assists from a rookie guard is a number that doesn't show up very often. And Clark specifically called her out post-game, saying Johnson brings that edge for us on defense and is constantly leading the team in deflections.
Caitlin and KK, what do you think Raven brought to you for this second preseason game?
Yeah.
Defensively, the energy, 5 steals tonight, and just, I know she had steal and gave a layup to you, and Caitlin sharing the backcourt with you as well.
I would say, she just brings that edge for us on defense. She's always winning that category in deflections. She make a turnover, she's going to get it back for us, and we're going to go, and it's going to lead us to a score. So she's always being that defensive presence that we need in that energy on defense.
Yeah, I'd agree with KK. We chart every deflection, so even if it's not categorized as a steal on the box, she's still getting that, and we're talking about that in the locker room, and that affects an offensive possession a lot. So
Johnson's defensive instincts already look like something Indiana can build around, and if she keeps developing at this rate, she could anchor their perimeter defense for years, though her offensive game still needs work before she's a complete player at this level. The roster construction questions that fans have been raising all offseason didn't get quieter after Friday night. The rebounding deficit against Dallas made that conversation louder because the Fever simply don't have enough length when Boston sits down. And that's not a problem you solve by running more plays.
So, that's what she can bring to this team is that defensive mindset. She's picking up 94 feet every single time. She's bringing the energy every single time she's in. And, I think just her continuing to do that will be huge for us.
White also told reporters she felt Indiana lacked urgency and looked disconnected on the defensive end. And that's the part that's harder to fix with personnel moves alone because it's about habits and focus, not just matchups. With Boston and Hull back in the lineup, Indiana's rebounding numbers improve and their defensive versatility goes up. But the turnover issues and the tendency to force plays instead of taking the easy option, those are going to follow this team into the regular season unless White finds a way to stamp them out in practice. Clark scored 21 points in 16 minutes, praised the refs, went directly at Bueckers, and did all of it with Boston and Hull sitting in street clothes on the bench. After the game, she confirmed she felt good after landing hard on her kneecap, which is the kind of news that matters a lot more than the final score given everything her body went through in 2025. Some analysts already bumped her up from 10th to 4th in their revised rankings within hours of the final buzzer. The regular season opener is coming, Boston and Hull are returning, and somebody at ESPN has a very uncomfortable spreadsheet to update. Do you think the WNBA referees will be fair to Caitlin this year? Let me know down in the comments below. Like, subscribe, and turn on all notifications so you never miss out. Click the video on the screen, and we will see you in the next one.